All right. Looks like we're live. Welcome. My name is Timothy Honeycutt, and I will be showing you a bit about how I record and how I've gone about creating this channel, what God has taught me, and what my aims and goals are as I continue to go forward. So I just thought this might be useful for anyone who's been curious, but also if they're interested in doing narration themselves. Yeah, so we can jump right in and we'll go from there. And then there'll be Q&A at the end. You can ask your questions now. I'll try to go back through them after the presentation, and then, yeah, we'll go from there. All right. First time using StreamYard, first time live streaming. So let's see how this goes. All right. How I record in Q&A, June 2021. So how Orthodox wisdom began. It was early 2018. So yeah, over 3 years ago. I simply wanted to record for myself. That was the initial motivation. I wanted to listen to some of the things I was reading and praying while I did chores or while I drove to work or other things like that. I wanted to have my mind praying and reading and contemplating the words of the saints. So I first just started by reading random texts that were just on my mind at the moment. Some of which just never made it to the channel because they were extremely basic, extremely primitive. And someone says SOS 4. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me. If you can hear me, just let me know so I can know that I'm going to keep continuing. And then I started to record. Yeah, and I was desiring a lack of shorter length content because there's some wonderful Orthodox audiobooks out there, but they're very long and it would take extra attention or extra time and focus to consume it, to process it, especially audio. Some things over audio, even some of the things I record, I know, are difficult to listen to. It's almost better to read. But, you know, things that I record are the words of the saints. They have eternity dwelling in them, and they can be listened to multiple times and still be profitable, obviously. So I started by recording Spiritual Psalter by St. Ephrem the Syrian and Divine Eros, hymns of St. Simeon the New Theologian. And I hope if any of you have not read these texts or do not have these texts, highly recommend these texts. And as I started to do these recordings, I began to realize, I think others would probably want this as well. So what started out as simply something for me, I decided to put those things up on YouTube back, I think it was March of 2018. And that started this channel, and you are all here now. Now, as I've gone, I've learned a lot, and I've had a lot of realizations, some of which I've had to repent of, and some of which, of course, have been extremely beautiful, including the things I've learned that I needed to repent from. And so at this point, I've come to where I've got a select group of texts that I feel comfortable recording for a number of reasons. I'll just go into briefly into why. At first, as you can tell, the Spiritual Psalter by St. Ephrem the Syrian and Divine Eros by St. Simeon the New Theologian were or are under copyright, being sold. And so I just didn't have the right mindset. I wasn't experienced enough. I was just doing it very casually, very simply, and not thinking through everything. So I realized that I need to keep things either strictly from the public domain. I need to avoid texts that are under copyright, with some exceptions that, may or may not be perfectly reasonable. I'm still, learning and discerning as I go, but I think I'm on solid ground on these things. I look for things that are posted on popular websites, some of which are explicitly mentioned to have a blessing, and some of which aren't, but if they're on popular websites, I don't necessarily want to list them out. You can see where I get the text in the video description. I always try to put the link to the text that you can read in the video description. And so I look for those. In specific cases, I'll find things that are either out of print and not for sale. There's no intention of being sold again, as far as I can tell after researching or even asking at times. And even from those texts, I'm still just going to record select sections. It's possible I might do a full audio book at some point, but for a few different reasons, I'm not inclined. One, because it'd probably be something I'd have to get a specific blessing for, and it's probably a book that's being sold, although it might not be. And which would be fine. Obviously, things are better with a blessing. But I also, a big motivation for me is I like looking for different things to put out. Maybe it's just a short attention span, but I like putting out different things, not just spending a few months on one specific text. Pros and cons, obviously, but that's currently my approach. In terms of the content I choose, I try to get a mix, and it's a constant struggle because there's a lot of things one could pick from, obviously, and so I try to find things that are timeless, that are definitely could be applied, of course, to something maybe the church is dealing with more head on now, or that people coming into the church might have specific questions. Maybe English speaking world, they might have more questions along a certain line of things than others. There could be things like that, but definitely try to keep things that are very timeless. But ultimately, the words of the saints are timeless always. They might apply to a specific situation, but the principles and the truth of them, of course, is eternal because it comes from Christ. So there are other times, as you've seen, I'm sure, if you followed my channel, that I pick. I also have content that's directly applicable to our current times. It might be about our current times, with a recent recording I did from St. Paisios, literally called On Our Times. Different things surrounding, just current events sometimes. But it's still the writings of the saints. I'm strictly going to stick with those who are canonized, glorified saints, or those that have the level of veneration of glorified saints. There may be some few exceptions. There are a few exceptions in the totality of my recordings, but those are very rare exceptions. And so definitely a mix of teachings, a mix of lives of the saints. One thing that I don't do as much of now that I did more at the beginning were prayers. Very open to that. I do bring those things come to mind at times. But there are some beautiful choirs, obviously, people that can sing and chant much better than I, especially singing. And so I'm a little more selective on those things. I find myself, I've got a long list of lives of saints and teachings of saints that I'm interested in recording. And so I'm currently focused more on those. And then recent saints. This icon here on this slide is an icon of saints who have shone forth in the 20th century. And as I've learned, and we'll look at a quote from Saint Simeon the New Theologian at the end of this presentation. But as I've learned, one must be familiar with, connected to, and obedient to Christ in the saints of our times, of our recent times, in order to be connected to the saints of ages past. That's what Saint Simeon teaches, and surely other saints have said the same thing in different ways. So I'm also very drawn to the more recent saints. Their lives feel very palpable to me. I feel as though it's easier to connect with them personally. I know some people feel differently, and I'm grateful for that. I wouldn't all want us to be the same, same in every way, every kind of bias, if you will. But for me personally, I'm much more drawn to recent saints in general. It's a discipline for me to read more patristics, more from that era, than it is for me to read the lives and writings of the recent saints. So that's kind of why you see what you see from my channel. So we'll look a bit about how I record, just the basic principles of it, as well as how I edit, because I'm guessing a lot of you, if you followed my channel, you might have noticed at some point a while ago, I started to edit the recordings. I'm not able to simply sit down and read a text without error for 20, 30, whatever minutes. I just can't do it. Not even 2 or 3 minutes, basically. So that's something I learned to do at one point. A lot of things I've learned to do to increase the quality of these recordings, because again, I listen to my own recordings. At first it was a little odd to listen to my own voice, but these are the writings of the saints. Christ inspired these men and women, and so I want to hear their words, and I want to hear them, in a higher quality way. So this microphone is very basic. I bought this microphone, and the first recording I did with it was the life of St. Cuthbert of Lindisfarne back in December of 2019. And it's a $60 mic. It plugs into your smartphone. You can use it on the go. It's designed to be used on the go. It's also, very useful, of course, for just a stationary setup. It plugs right into a smartphone. They make it for like Samsung phones as well as iPhones. And then it comes with this cover, as you can see on the right side of the screen. It's a muffler kind of thing. It muffles the sound. It helps eliminate some of the things that would cause one to like tilt their head if they're listening to recordings. I'll get into that in a moment. So yeah, I just use this microphone. It's very simple, very cheap, relatively speaking, obviously. It plugs into a phone and works just with your basic recording app. It's funny how I've picked up things as I've gone along on all sorts of fronts. And one of the things that I did at the beginning that I've improved upon is I was a lot more monotone. I've always had that kind of voice, and I've had to work on it actively to try to be less monotone, because often what I think is like, a big vocal landscape for me doesn't sound like that to other people. And so I picked that up as I've listened to my recordings over these years. And so the way I would phrase it is just you have to own the words. They may not be your own words, but you pray to the saints and to God, of course, before you start, and you try to own the words. You try to put their own words into your mouth, not in an emotional or ecstatic or fantastical way or anything like that, but just try to own them, make them more your own to a degree. And I think that's really helped my recordings in the last number of months. Background noise, obviously, you don't need to go into all that. The quieter environment, the better. That muffle, they call it a dead cat, I believe, on the microphone helps immensely with things like plosives. Plosives are what you hear if you have a bad mic setup and you hear the word or the sound P made. It's like a bass almost. You can almost feel the bass in the in the recording, and it's a plosive. And so the muffler thing on the microphone, the dead cat, helps immensely. Sibilance is when you have S's that get really high pitch, and it's partly because you're maybe too close to the mic. I think it's too close, and as well as not having it muffled correctly. But those S's can get really high pitch, and for me personally, I'm very in tune to these things now, but they're very annoying, frankly, and I have trouble with them. If I hear a recording with them, it's something I try to get past and pray through, especially if it's a text I really want to hear or someone speaking I really want to hear from. But it's something you can hear in my early recordings, and I got a handle on. Mouth clicks is another big thing. Ideally, you're hydrated when you start these things, and for most of my recordings, basically almost all of them before my daughter was born a few months ago, that I would do them early in the morning when it was real quiet, and I would do my best to get hydrated, drink my water, and do my best to avoid these mouth clicks. And it's the main thing, is hydration. And so what I often do is I'll drink water throughout the recording to try to avoid that, and then go back and I'll show you how I edit mistakes out. So, there's no concern about, if I make a mistake, it's going to get stuck in the recording. Now, I could record a lot more. I could record a lot more if I didn't deal with the mistakes. But personally, I much prefer to edit out the mistakes to make a cohesive, nice recording. And I think it's better overall. All right. Let's go back. I want to show you how I edit out mistakes before I show you a tip for how I create the thumbnails I do. I'm kind of a graphic design nerd, and I think it makes a big difference in terms of attracting new people, at least, and getting them maybe to click on something they might not otherwise click on. And I feel free to do that, especially since these are not my words. And just putting the words of the saints into my mouth. So what we're looking at here is GarageBand, and this is how I edit the recordings. So we're just going to go through two examples from this. This is from St. Ignatius Branching Enough on Prayer, recent recording I did. And I'm going to show you how I would edit out mistakes that I make as I read and edit them out later. They're different. I believe it's called punch and roll. It's a technique that professionals use that I'm not exactly sure I have the setup for right now. And so I haven't gotten really into that, but I know it's a thing. It's a technique that people use to be able to do this faster. So it's something you can look up if you wish. Let's see if everyone can hear this. Let's see. Can someone tell me if they can hear the recording here on the, leave that there. If they can hear the recording as I play it. I hope you can hear that. I tried to get it set up so you could, because I can't hear it right now myself. Maybe if I just get it set up that way. Just give me one moment. I'm trying to get the sound to work so you can all hear. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to really know about the editing. Let me take this microphone out real quick. Let's see. Okay. Should be unmuted now. Should be able to hear me, hopefully. Okay. So then we're going to go back to our presentation. And I'm going to show you how I would edit. One tip that's really useful and makes my thumbnails, I think, look much better is the following. So this is an icon of Father Seraphim Rose. And so this is what I find online here on the left. And I'm going to show you how I get it from this to this, where you have no background and you still retain the halo. Because sometimes that can be really tricky. And this is a good example of how tricky it can be at times, because the halo is the exact same color as the background. So there's a website called remove.bg, and it's excellent for this very thing, removing the background. And it does a great job, does better than PowerPoint with doing it, because it really keeps the lines very smooth around, the saint on an icon, for example. But as you can see, this is exactly what comes out of remove.bg on this type of image and this icon. It removes the entire halo. So we need to get that halo back on there. And I'm going to show you how I do that. All right, so here's the image, obviously, and here's after I put it in through remove.bg. And here, I'm not sure. Oh, let's go back. Okay. So, let's zoom back out. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this original image, go to picture format. And again, I'm sure there are better ways to do this, but this has worked out really well for me. Remove background. Now, all I care about right here is the halo and things, surrounding it. So on the end, it's going to look seamless. So mark areas to keep. Oh, let's see. Why is it? Let me see here. I want to move things out. Huh. That's not what we're looking for. All right. I'm not sure why exactly it's not showing me lines in here in the middle, but we'll give it a shot. We just need to get this. Yeah, see how that halo just pops up? It recognizes the border of the halo when you do this. And then I'm going to mark areas to remove so that there's not any sort of overlap that we don't want. I'm sure there's some iconographers right now probably pretty unhappy with this. I don't know. I know this is just the best way digitally to make things look the way that you see them on my thumbnails. All right, so we have the halo. We can keep the glow book up there. That's fine. And then we click out or keep changes. And that's all we need. That's all we need. So we're going to drag this over. And so you can see with that line that's vertical right now, just very fine line that's vertical. We're just going to drop that on there. And then I just get it really finely tuned. I try to see, okay, when does the image behind start to disappear? It looks like right about there, right there, I think. Okay, that's vertical. And then horizontal, right about there. So now we've got the halo, but we've got this little chunk here that it kept on there. And we don't have that nice red circle or whatever color it is, depending on the icon. Now, I've already made a circle that's the exact same size, as you can see here. And we just place it right over, and you can just move it around real fine, real precise. right about there. No, right about there. Well, I may not be 100% perfect, but for our sake at the moment, it is good enough. Now, you got this line down here. You just need to bring this main icon image to the front. And there we go. That's how you can create an icon image and then put a different background behind it, which is something I've really enjoyed doing. I think it's made the thumbnails very nice at times. All right, so that's how we do that. Let's go back and finish our presentation. Already a half an hour in. I'm very glad. Hope this is useful for everyone and interesting. Let's scroll back through. Yep, there we go. So I just want to mention some final thoughts. And I've got a few quotes here to read, and then just some final thoughts. So let's start with these quotes. The one I'd referenced earlier from St. Simeon the New Theologian. He says, "A man who does not express a desire to link himself to the latest of the saints in time, in all love and humility owing to a certain distrust in himself, will never be linked to the preceding saints and will not be admitted to their succession, even though he thinks he possesses all possible faith and love for God and for all his saints. He will be cast out of their midst, as one who refused to take humbly the place allotted to him by God before all time, and to link himself to that latest saint in time, as God has disposed." A couple quotes here from Father Seraphim that fit in nicely together and help round them out, especially the first one, as we'll read. Father Seraphim writes, "There is no problem of our own confused times which cannot find its solution by a careful and reverent reading of the Holy Fathers. In all these questions, the Holy Fathers and our living fathers who follow them are our only sure guide." You see the connection there with St. Simeon's quote? In another place, he writes, "Through experience, we must learn how to apply the writings of the Holy Fathers and the Scriptures itself to our own level and circumstances. Our spiritual life is not something bookish or that follows formulas. Everything we learn has to become part of our life and something natural to us." And finally, a wonderful, wonderful statement from the Apostle Paul. "Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain in the Lord." And with that, I think that's all I have. It's a basic overview of my recording process, how I choose what I record, how I record it, how I edit it. And I really hope this channel is useful for you. I mean, I'm obviously very confident it is in some ways, because these are the writings of the saints. These are the inspired words of the men and women of our times and proceeding back all the way to the apostles and our Lord. And so if one invitation for all of you, if you have texts that you think fit into the categories that I described earlier, and you would really want to have recorded, feel free to let me know. I'm always open to suggestions. I make no guarantees, of course, but I'm very open to suggestions and would love to hear what you would like to see recorded. And my prayer and goal is just to continue the channel more or less as it is. Continue to get recordings out, usually about one a week is what I can do at this time. And yeah, I welcome your feedback. I welcome your questions, both now and in the future. And so we'll take a look at some questions. All right. Just looking through, there's a few comments here. Help me get through work. That's great. What's a good starter mic? Well, I think the one I suggested is possibly the best. Let me scroll back up to that slide. This one's excellent. It's called Rode VideoMic ME or Me. I think it's still $60. It looks like, $80. I think it was on one website. Pretty affordable for microphones, especially, and it works great. I've had it for a year and a half, and it's worked great. Every recording you can see from the last year and a half, starting with the life of St. Cuthbert, has been on this microphone, so I highly recommend it. If it's not suitable in terms of the way it's designed, I don't know. I've not gotten deeper into the microphone world beyond just what I use here, so I hope that helps. I should select the question. Can I do that? Yeah. What's a good starter mic? So that's the microphone I would suggest for that. I don't see any other questions. You can ask me questions on what I record, other things if you wish. Obviously, not your spiritual father. I'm going to go to YouTube and see what we see there. All right, let's see. Hi, Pano. I'm just going to go over here to YouTube. Oh, wait, no, all the questions are coming in from YouTube. I just want to see my on my post I made on my channel if there's anything there. Yeah, never seen me live before. I know I did do one update video. I think it was last spring, where I showed my face and everything and spoke candidly. But yeah, this is new for me as well. Typically, I'm not interested in showing my face or making this about me, but I thought it was useful to try to go over some things that people might want to hear about. Oops. Let me change this. There we go. Let's see. Okay, I'm struggling to see it there. Let me just look at my phone. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, the stream will probably end pretty soon. I obviously understand if you don't have questions. If you have questions later, you can ask me in the chat, or the comment section, rather. Let's see. All right. View channel, community. Okay, no comments there. If you have old ones, please. Okay. Well, I appreciate your time tonight. If you don't have any more questions, I think I'll end the stream. Thank you so much. I hope this is helpful. I hope this is inspiring to some of you who've thought about doing the same thing. And yeah, the more Orthodox content we can have in English on audio, I think the better. There's an immense amount of audiobooks, Orthodox audiobooks and audio content of the saints in Russian, I'm sure in Greek, but it's still new in a lot of ways for the English-speaking world. So thanks be to God for what we have. Thank you for your prayers for me and my family. Very, very much appreciate that. And yeah, very grateful for your time and for your support. And God willing, we'll see more and more recordings come out as soon as they come out. All right. Thank you so much.